Hello, buongiorno everybody, welcome. Today is our first public lecture series, and the title of the lecture series is Architecture as a Verb. And we've done this a little bit to align with what's happening with the school. I think most of you know that we're trying to coordinate a specific identity for the School of Architecture in terms of how we teach architecture. And we've identified this word or this sentence, which is architecture as a verb, which is really trying to teach the fundamentals of architecture in the undergraduate. And so we have two public series lectures in the first and second semester. And the first series is under the title Architecture as a Verb, which is how we are looking at the undergraduate program. And the next semester is following from that, is architecture as agency. And although it looks a bit mysterious in a way, architecture as a verb, it has a lot of history and a lot of thinking behind it. And it's really interesting to how we got to this. It's something that we got there together. And rather than listen to an architect, we're looking at the writings of an anthropologist. And the anthropologist in question is a British anthropologist, Professor Tim Ingalls, who works in Aberdeen, the University of Aberdeen. And he coined this sentence, which I think you've heard before, but is interesting to our school. And he used the word anthropology, but I'm going to change it to architecture. And he says, to teach architecture is to practice architecture. And vice versa. To practice architecture is to teach it. And so I think behind this title is this idea of how to teach and how to practice architecture. And this is really embedded in the way that we see the future of architecture. And if you think of the three lecturers that we're going to have, they're going to talk about diverse topics which are all related to verbs, which is make, observe, and prototype. Now, if you look back and you think of our curriculum, how do we teach design studio? Is we look at verbs such as measure, prototype, adapt, materialize, inhabit, and perform. So that's the thinking behind the series. But at the same time, we always have this motto that is written here that says architecture with people. And again, we put a lot of time to think of this title, and it's different from architecture for people. It's with people. And I think this is a perfect way to introduce Wendy Teo, because a lot of what she does, and you'll see, is with people. So with that, I'll introduce Melody, who will introduce our first speaker. Thank you very much.
Hey, well, thank you, Peter, for the introduction. And yeah, welcome everybody for the first lecture of this public lecture series. So I will introduce our guest today, Wendy Teo. Very happy to have you here. So Wendy is a Malaysian-born architect. Is also RIBA Chartered Architect, also a curator, researcher, and also a tutor dedicated to embedding socio-cultural dialogues into design. So through her multidisciplinary practice, Wendy Teo Atelier, and her creative agency, Borneo Laboratory, so her work spans through architecture, research, and publication, addressing social and cultural issues through critical discourse. So recently, her research has expanded to regenerative practice inspired by ancestral wisdom and rooted cultural traditions. So as the director of Think Tink, and formerly called Ting Ting, she's transforming the destination into a shared platform of regional partners in arts, regenerative design, and also digital fabrication, so called Mind Factory for bold ideas. So we're very looking forward to hear more from Wendy. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for the introduction. And also, I'm very thankful for this opportunity to be here to share the ideas with you. Yeah. Okay. So I think a lot of us sitting here are passionate about, like, you know, the impact of architecture and the plannings. So we are always in a state of doing, yeah, to enable more state of doing. So in the, especially in the like design, we also find that like there's like, you know, there's a lot of research and design and the creation happening all at the same time. Yeah, so I think for us, like, I think it's very important that like we're surrounding ourselves like with the very wise and good people, because then we can like have more chances of like co-creation, co-research and co-design. Yeah, but it is also important not to be the echo chamber as well, because then we can meaningfully attune in and also to participate in what is going on in the world. So, and today what I'm going to share is like how do, like, rather than like previously the one that like you saw on the screen was actually some of the project like I was part of like previously, but I'm more interested in sharing with you like the practice as a state of being, and a lot of time like during the research and developments, practice as a state of being is very important, and also like how a lot of time like we look at the local issue we face in different region, they are in fact global issue as well. And also the challenges from community like Borneo, such as the loss of tradition and the belief system. After all, like you can also find the same problem in Hong Kong as well. Yeah, and they are very alike. And in the world of like, when the concentration and centralization, standardization, synchronization, maximization, or massification all happening in our regional community, you will find that like even the idol or even the role model that we are looking at, they are alike. So because these are actually the paradigm on in the previous time, I think we are in the transition. But also this is something that we need to be alert of, because it actually potentially means that we don't give enough space to enable diversified narrative that could have been giving ways to for us to cope with the kind of like disasters that we are now facing. Yeah, so not simply we interested in the practice as a state of being, we are also interested in how it can be a regenerative one to our community beyond time. And at the same time, quality of being also decides the quality of doing. And for us, we see ourselves as a multidisciplinary lab. And then we started our journey like by going back to Borneo in 2018. And then 2020, like we took over the abandoned supermarket and turned it into the incubator and the space. And from this year onward, we're also looking at like to be more land-based as well. And when we talk about the multidisciplinary platform, it actually means that like there's a willingness, and we always need to remember that like this willingness to cross borders together. And from the late like 2023, I set an intention for the lab that like we are going to host more conference of all being. And then looking at it now, like there's also a numbers of like project associate to like how can we bring the conversation of like different disciplines, cross borders, human and non-human together. So this is also something quite interesting for us. And most importantly, is like how could we exercise like different collective way of doing things. That's including like gathering resources to enable different voices. So our journey, actually there's a lot of collective practice being hosted. So started from the creative practice to workshop, to publication, and then to placemaking, curatorial like practices. So we do propagation as well, and then like along the way, we also wish to document things extensively, and we publish apart like even gathering resource to publish book is actually the way that like we engage public practice like crowdsourcing, so and crowdfunding as well. So last year our book was also included in ESOP like Women's Library. And for us, it's also important that like a lot of our work not speaking only region specific, but is crossing borders as well, and bringing the collective, realizing the collective beyond borders. So, and deep listening is very important for us. I don't know whether you know of like there's a deep listening academy in place. Walk slowly, so slowly until the bottom of your feet becomes ears. So that came from Pauline Oliveros in her Deep Listening Academy, which we very much inspired by. So we're documenting like the soundscape and also the story around the community, turning them into podcasts and propagation. So this you can also find it from Spotify as well. And then the way we work also means that like we will need to work with a multidisciplinary like team. And a lot of time it's not simply diverse in terms of skill, but also their disciplinary insight and ambition in the skill they have. So our approaches, like during the pandemic, like also attracted like some partners who see our value and also the importance of telling it, amplifying it towards the world, which is also getting more and more like hostile due to the confusion in so many different transitions that like we are facing right now. So during the pandemic, like when we were putting ourselves like, you know, hiding inside that like abandoned building and also doing a lot of renovation to it, we're also seeing like the hostility is getting more and more like from the community towards the infected one during the COVID time. So we set out the butterfly pavilion. That was actually the first announcement towards the community around us. We are now in the town. And also it can be seen by most of the quarantine hotel around it because it was in the city center. So it sent a message of like caterpillar thinks that is the end of the world, butterfly knows that is the beginning. So it was using the butterfly patterns inspire like to shape that pavilion. And then we was invited by the city council to set out the opening and also an installation in the park in the city. So when we first opened out the door to the public like visitor from the foreign country to Borneo region. So what you saw earlier was actually an installation opening in the park that attended by many around each line actually representing each person, because we need to also comply to the social distancing policy. So the idea of that like installation during the day was that you get to see different color throughout different time of the day. You just need to be patient. And with the space within Ting Ting, which is the space that like we hosting the studio and workshop, we also work with like the nearby craftsmen that we have been working together for the past few years. And then some of it also resulted into research project like narrative for soil. So apart from that, like we also open up more spaces to host different community. And then like it's also hosting the independent bookstore in the city. And like apart from us doing things, it's also ended up attracting like more communities wanting to do the things they want to test out. Like for example, immersive theater, or like having the exhibition in the chill room, which used to be like, you know, storing the cheese and the ham in from the supermarket. And also the tattoo artists, like hosting their tattoo symposium within the supermarket. So we also have a space for residency, like art residency or research residency. But the kind of residency that we're interested in is actually material-based. And the material residency also brought like some interesting conversation, like for example, the one from last year was focusing on timber bark. And then for timber bark, like it was fascinating that like, how museum actually sponsor the residency, because and they saw the relation between like how timber bark can be used as a specimens to identify like how human migration happened in the region, like Polynesian and Austronesian. So they see that value of like of amplifying that narration by hosting more residency artists coming to our region to identify the bark. But through the process, it also enabled us to have a glimpse of like how museum as a colonial legacy or like institutional like instrument with the nation building agenda. So this is also the very open conversation like we have and share with the museum as well. And then for us, we also participated in a number of festivals. Festival for us is a platform for imagination. And especially for this series, Redesigning Bornean Aesthetic, because we actually preset that intention to be, how about imagine ourselves never being colonized? And how will we see vernacular material and cultural asset and everyday experiences differently? So I'm going to share like some of the selected projects from that series. And so during that time, like I was invited to set up a bamboo pavilion. And I don't know how many of you read the book from Alfred Russel Wallace, The Malay Archipelago. So if you have seen the book, you may notice that like from the first few chapters, he mentioned about like the bamboo material in the West Kalimantan region, which was like, you know, it was used in the landscape a lot for the infrastructure, for the utensil, for the everyday uses. But then the 2018, when I was there, like there's nowhere to see all this bamboo material and even the people knowing how to do it as a collectively as an industry. So when I drew, like after I have done the sketches and also talking to people, immediately like I realized like this is actually an effort that we have to do differently. So we engaged 5 different villages. And then it becoming an act of like remembering all this technique that like used to be still exists in the villages. Like some of the uncle and auntie that like we were working with was talking about like, yeah, I remember my aunt used to do that, and also my grandpa used to use this for this. And also there was a lot of conversation happening during their festival as well, the Gawai festival, which is the harvest festival. And when we went to their festival, we also realized that like some of the kids were saying that, you know what, I'm so glad you did that, because we didn't know we have such a skill or such like material can be used in such way. So it becoming a collective work that we co-share together. And then so after a few weeks of like working together, so we enabled that like bamboo pavilion. And then it was also like for a lot of time, like perhaps like for architect, the work stopped here, because now you have the nice story, you have the nice like picture, you have the nice like like skill to share to talk about. But then for us, it's already beyond the design project. It's beyond the architecture project. We realized the importance of like documentation during that time, documenting it, sharing it, open to make it into an open source to share it to the public. And we not simply do that for the bamboo. We also do that like for the timber bark and the timber material and rattan and different type of craft, and then documenting them into publication. But then that was also when we realized what we're doing is not simply just design. We were doing a form of activism, which we name it as craftivism. And craftivism with the purpose of remembering. So this similar things happen on the culinary practices that like we were working with our partners, our collaborator, Marian. So there is also a lot of like narrative that has been lost throughout the process, because food, you like it or not, is politics. It's very political. Yeah, so in the, especially for the Bornean food, like for a long time, it's being seen as a lowly food, staple food, because of the, it's from the kampong, it's from the village, it's from the kind of places that are like very humble, and people don't really associate with the, like, you know, how much of the biodiversity, like elements you have, and also how proud you should be with things that coming from the land. And so that became like something that we're trying to look at, and also how we can test working with the village around. So and because of these archive and also the exhibition and the dining session that we did, like there's a lot more awareness, and we're slowly seeing like more and more restaurants starting to change the food, the culinary focus they've been focusing on into Bornean food. And also in 2020, we also realized like there are already more than like 6 or 7 restaurants changing into like Bornean food. And now when you look at like Malaysia, the first 3 Michelin restaurants, they are serving like Bornean ingredient. And 2021, the town also received the UNESCO City of Gastronomy. So we saw seeing all these progresses. But at the same time, it's like, it was also due to, like, there's still a lot of like lost tradition in the region. Like for example, the sense is also another thing that like our friends and collaborators interested in. And then on the following year of like the first Redesigning Bornean Aesthetic series, like we were invited the second time, like to work with something associated to the bamboo experience again. So this time around, rather than us like building it, we want to see how we can pass down the knowledge to a wider public. So if you have been to, actually how many of you, any of you are Malaysian? Okay. So if you've been to Kuching, which is the town like I'm in the western part of Borneo, you may find that it used to be a capital city of during the Brute Empire time. So like people always tell their address from the reference of like, okay, first mile, second mile, third mile, because we have a city center, which is look like this. So it's an old courthouse of during the Brute Empire time. You can see like how the building was actually quite colonial like style. Yeah. So how could we do it differently, like, you know, to redefine the origin? So we call this project the origin. And then how could we enable a different origin together? So the effort we were doing is not on the building this time around. It's actually like, how do we share the knowledge into an IKEA-proof brochure? So we spend more time drawing the brochure, explaining how the things can be done, like through a lot of meticulous like details on how on the health and safety, on the structure, and also making model for them to understand how it works. So we factored in like 1.5 months, but it's ended out like done in 3 weeks. So more than 60 people participated from different parts of Borneo, coming in, take times to build and learn. Yeah, because in Borneo, if you know of like the region, you will know that like in the region there is like concept of Berjalai, and also the concept of like building houses together, collective like action. So within these 3 weeks, like we managed to reset that like the origin with the local material, and also with like the participants learning how to build it together. So, and to redefine that like spaces, that central spaces of Kuching in Borneo. So another project that like we were looking at collaborative and collective work is like during the pandemic, we started navigating into soil. So because we can only like do a very mini workshop because of the social restriction. So we were looking at like collecting the soil from different regions and trying to identify like how they can be used like in different for the different architectural material. And furthermore, it's also expanded into like looking at how the soil practices around the world will do it in their own way. So for example, like printing with the soil, printing with muds, and baking soil into furniture, or like using the polluted soil into a manifesto for sculpture, and harvesting energy from soil, building with soil. So the team, even the team is actually quite across like different regions as well. And we also publish a book with it. Yeah, so there's a small video on that.
Soil is like one of the interest that I had as a designer, triggering other thinking about their experiences with soil. My projects all seem to gravitate without intention towards mud. Understand technology and nature, create more symbiotic relationships between the two.
In fact, because of this research, like there's also a lot of continuation over the research in different building project or isolation project that like my practice has been engaging with. So this is an ongoing like endeavor. So apart from like looking at the materials and also how we work with like different community beyond the border, we're also interested in how our country can also like look into change to be better as well. So if you know of the Malay language, the lion actually means the others. And a lot of time in our region, like throughout our lifetime, like in the country like Malaysia, we're still constantly reminded by our category through census, Malay, Chinese, Indian, or lion, because introduced by the British colonial time. But at the same time, we also realize, in fact, the terms the lion in Sanskrit dictionary, lion also means to embrace. So we subtitle the project as like embracing differences through lost and found ancestral wisdom. So last year, we were quite delighted that like the Prime Minister initiative through Think City, like agency like Think City, we got the support to put together a gallery, a one-year gallery in the capital city, Kuala Lumpur of Malaysia, to set out like this the Lion project and the Lion Gallery. So it's a trilogical exhibition that feature 3 research projects we have throughout different times. So all more than, like one of them is actually 1-year project, and then the rest is actually all more than 3 years. So the Lion project, Serumpun's, feature the trilogical project. The first one is Serumpun, Big Trip, and then the third one is Lion in Kuala Lumpur. And so these are the spaces in the gallery. And at the same time, we engage people of different disciplines to go through the conversation, sama-sama in Lion, the sameness in the others. Do you think process are still relevant? So we are glad that like it's also triggered a lot of like conversation within the country, and then there's more conversation like on the legally or in the public, like to talk about like how should we move on collectively. So this is the picture for this project. Like in the last gallery we have, the last experience is like we invited like the Myanmar, the refugee, and also the people who are working, and perhaps like have the second or the third descendants in Malaysia, to draw the, like, you know, what inspired them, like as a picture, like in terms of the home. So they draw the picture of home, and some of them actually show the Twin Towers as what they think of home, and also the strawberry they can find in the Cameron Highland, which is in Malaysia, as like what they associate as home. So which is also the kind of voices that we find a lot of time being overlooked in the region of like in our region. So for the first space that, like, you know, we were looking at Serempun. Serempun is actually a craftivism like series 2 of Borneo Lab. So after we did the 2018 and 2019 craftivism redesigning Bornean aesthetic, so our long-term partner, like from GSA, Glasgow School of Arts, because they have been known for their community practice and also the kind of like experiment they have been doing. So they were like, you know what, Wendy, this shouldn't just stay in Kuching. It should go beyond throughout the Borneo, because there are so many things not being remembered. So then we ended up like working with, looking at 12 community around Borneo, and more than 200 craftsmen was involving in this project, and with the sole purpose of remembering. So these are the group of people that we were working with. So there are rattans and bidais and bard or musical instrument. So there's a lot of things that like we managed to document it, but also we find that like there's a lot of region still in a situation of this double bind. The double bind means that, like, you know, because of the extraction economy that like heavily impacted the landscape. So a lot of people they are impacted. Their craft is actually impacted by the extraction economy. So they wouldn't be able to keep the practice. Or struggle to kind of like develop the practice. But at the same time, they are also benefiting from that extraction economy, because they are now involving as a, you know, sometimes you can't beat them, you join them, you end up joining them. So there's a lot of complexity happening over the landscape. So with the project, like we also ended up doing like exhibition with Borneo Culture Museum. Actually, that was their first like external exhibition within the community as well. So we are also very thankful for the media around Malaysia has been featuring the project. And also the work has been included in some of the research paper, and in Brunei, in Indonesia, or in Malaysia. So last year we did an exhibition in Indonesia. That was the first time because for Borneo, for Indonesia, is also a marginalized like landscape as well. So it was actually the very first time like ICAD, Indonesia Contemporary Arts and Design, featured the content from Borneo. So how could we see paper as a metaphor in that context? And how could we tell the story from something that very fragile and turn it into a landscape to showcase different content from what we have learned in the community. So this is a 10 meter by 7 meter paper that cut into, like, slice into space for the ICAD. And then for the second parts of, like, second space for of that trilogical project, the Lion Gallery, is Big Trip. So for Big Trip, it was a 4 years project that, like, during the pandemic, what we find is, like, you see, with the bamboo practice and also the bamboo pavilion, like, when we were on the field, we realized that there's a lot of story that we heard. It will be a struggle to find a space for them. like in terms of the profession. Like for example, some of the villager like told us is like, you know what, we wouldn't be able to provide the bamboo as a commodity, as something that you can buy and then you can get, because our relationship with the land and the bamboo is dictated by the how much we can tell and also practice from the lunar cycle. Because the lunar cycle, like you see, lunar cycle decide like how you, like human body as well. So it's also decide like a lot of different fiber, like how they within them the glucose level. So then we later realize that like it's actually linked to like the wave and also the rhythm of the land towards the fibers. So it's also impacting like rattan. And some textile material or the woven material, not simply in bamboo. So, but then we noticed that like this is very important, because you see how many of us actually like perhaps learn about this from the field, but then not being able to tell it, like to consolidating all these things that we have learned into propagation or information. So that's why we decided to spend that pandemic time to listen to different community about the ancestral wisdom and the rooted practices in different regions. So it also amount and published into propagation. And what fascinating for me during this project, during the investigation, is like how much of the share link and also the commonality in the ancestral wisdom shared by different archipelago and island in the Pacific. So we are also grateful that like more than 16 bookstores around Malaysia, supporting by featuring the propagation in front of the window. So then it's get to shown like when it's associated to the Line Gallery and project. So global consortium wise, it's like we also find that it is important not simply to share like, you know, on our end, just doing our own thing, but also to see how can we work with other similar partners, like in different parts of the world. So 2 years ago, we joined the Good Enough transformation, and this is also enabled by Nordic funding. So we were looking at Burkina Faso and Cyprus and Mexico and Malaysia as like 4 different test beds. So Burkina Faso, because of the, like they're still in the times of like there's a lot of regional conflict. So how people can build like collectively and also finding a sustainable way to plan community. And then second one, when it comes to Cyprus, if you know of like Cyprus is a contested island because divided by the Green Line. So the northern part belonged to Turkish, and then the southern part belonged to Greece. So how could a shared vision and work can be organized in the region? And then the third one is Mexico. So in Mexico, we focus on the Xochimilco River, which is a river that contains like 2.6% of the biodiversity of the world. But the thing is, because of the 200 years of like cultivation, so at the moment the river also has a lot of crisis. And then like our region. So these 4 places, like how could we focusing on the gathering of like differences? Is actually one of the theme that we want to explore.
Not all is lost. Walls, small oases exist. Vestiges of lost and coming green cities. Invitations to reimagine. for the old while imagining the new. The overlapping crises of our time or perfection. Today, the house is still under construction, but it's collective wisdom of art practices and shift in mindset, we believe it already is.
So this is the manifesto for the Good Now transformation. So with the these are basically the photo from different parts of the test bed. So in fact, we also have the research and also the community of practice and the protocol of action like share online as well. So if you're interested in viewing it, you can come to the website, our website, to download the documents. And there are also toolkits to how did we do the workshop, how did we organize like the seminars like together with community. So on our end, like in Borneo region, like we were looking at a convergence of transformative ideas and practices across Asia Pacific and different parts of the world. So we call this project on reciprocity. How can we trigger the mind shifting moments like together through the workshop, through the seminars and the exhibition.
Reciprocity is a lived practice. We want first emerging locally, then spreading globally. Eventually, we realized that local issues are shift in mindset. We must recognize that the past, present, and future gathering of minds and voices, we aim to uncover narratives of reciprocity from diverse regions, exploring its many dimensions and possibilities.
So we basically open out the circle of like people with something that shared previously by Aspasia, the Greek philosopher. The true measure of wisdom is not knowledge, but imagination. So how could we enable more imagination together was one of the things we see as the intention and also the challenge from different aspects of the workshop. So these link back to GET, Protocol of Action, which we develop in our region. So how could we, beginning by listening and walking, how could we identify like local notes of reciprocity? Because in the experience of like Serempun, when we were doing the craftivism project, we also realized there's a lot of lost tradition because of the extraction economy and also the extraction models. But then there are also, can we allow or imagining like, the models beyond that or different from that, alternate from that? So these are actually the things that we are looking at in terms of the imagination. So if we were to do like knowledge production, how could we do it differently? If we listen to the cycle of the land, how could we structure institution or thoughts like thoughts of school differently? So there are steps to activate this protocol. Is actually all share online, share to the public. So during that time, we attracted like 22 participants, participated from 14 countries coming to Borneo. And we were looking at like our local cave as one of the natural shrine, which demonstrated how human can collaborate with non-human in the region. And also we invited local school to work together on the subject like of the local community, which is also what we learned about the bamboo knowledge, and we have been working with like for the past 7 years. And during that time, like initially we only planned for 6 seminars, but it's all ended out like to be more than 10 seminars because it's proposed, counter-proposed by the participants from different fields. So at the moment, like the exhibition is still going on, and in fact, we are publishing our new book, like our climate grocery, to with an intention to compensate like the missing grocery in the picture. So we were using basket because basket is the first ritual object and also is considered as a weapon. Yeah, in the past. So basket is a place to hold like all this knowledge. So we have been spending a lot of time like discussing how it can work and also set up the collective mood board for this. And these are some glimpses of the book. And in fact, next month, we will be part of the Earth Society, the special feature of like Indonesia contemporary art and design. So the book will be amplified into a space. So if you're interested, like it will happen from 9th of October onwards for a month. Yeah. And then our partner thus far is like, you know, it has been recurring one. So we'll be leaving, and like if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. That's all for my talk for today.
Thank you very much, Wendy. Yeah, for the very touching. Maybe we go on the first slide. Yeah. Yeah, no, for the very inspiring work. I guess when I first know about Wendy's work, I got very interested in the material, in the crafts, in the hands-on aspect of it. But I think through this sharing, we actually see even more so like how that becomes the acts of practicing. I love that word. How it actually brings people together and becoming like into a much broader impact. And I think that's actually very inspiration for us that when we think about projects and how much more that it goes on through acts of making that actually brings people together. Okay, I guess we'll have more than like 50 minutes or so, but I'd like to open up for any questions or thoughts.
Thank you. Very warm and inspiring talk. Again, it's difficult for me to formulate a question, but there's some thoughts I would like to sort of share with you. And one is this sense of how you always manage to get the right words. And I think maybe you could also speak to, because I think the words that you use in your videos and your slides are very powerful. Maybe you could talk a little bit to our students of how important words are, not sentences, not words, but words to express certain concepts. And one of the ones that I think is very powerful is this idea of reciprocity. And I sort of grew up with a nightmare of reciprocity because and I see you also studied at Cambridge, but Cambridge there was one professor who just consistently spoke about reciprocity. And it could be anything. And I sort of, every time I showed him any design, he would say, just think of reciprocity, think of reciprocity. And I think today, for the first time, it's coming alive, this idea. And maybe you could say, sort of, one about the words, and two about what this word, because on one level it means exchange, but it benefits everyone. So, and a lot of what we're doing here is about the collective. And I think the word reciprocity resonates with that. So it would just be interesting to hear your take on those two things. Thank you.
Thank you for the comment and also the question. Yes, I think words is very powerful because words is energy, you know, and it will also ignite, like, you know, not simply the curiosity, but also like the opportunities of learning, of like, it's a door, it's a window. And for us, like the words reciprocity actually came about like when we were doing with Serumpun project. Actually, we did more than 4 or 5 like road trip. So during the road trip, we actually traveled to a lot of rural area, a lot of remote places. So in some of the places, it's like, and you will find that like it's happened in a lot of region as well. Especially in the remote region, a lot of people wouldn't be able to access to. They were also heavily hampered by the extraction economy, like oil palm plantation, minings, because most of the wider public can't see. So, and then when we got to the place, like it was actually near to the border towns. So we were spending time with like the rattan practitioner. You see, rattan practitioner, when we speak about rattan practitioner, like as if they only weave, but in fact, most of the practitioner in the region, their practice is also inclusive of planting, harvesting, treating, and weaving, and also to sell it. So the holistic, like the practice itself is actually quite holistic, and that is also what I try to mean by, like, you know, the practice of being. And so it's, but a lot of time, like, because we are living in this, like, speaking about this from a metropolitan like Hong Kong or like places like Kuala Lumpur, basically we tend to compartmentalize roles. Yeah, so then we don't need to deal with, like, if we only do weaving, we don't need to deal with like the design. If we do design, we don't need to deal with like the marketization of like things. So these are the things that, like, things, the moment of departure of all different type of like things, you lost your connection in the rattan practitioner end. The moment they only do weaving, their relationship with the land also disappear. Yeah, the moment but then, like, because we had a chance, I think it was quite a privilege to go into the remote area and also to know different practitioners still carry the holistic practice. So we, with one of the practitioner, we did the forest walk, and to identify like what type of rattan, because we were trying to identify the diversity of rattan species in the region as well. And then she mentioned something quite like moved me, which is like every time we take, we give back as well. And that is the number one principle for any practices involving harvesting. So every time when you harvest something, you give back. And you will find your way, because of your relationship with the land, you give back. So and you can interpret it in your way, but then you need to give back because it's part of the practice. So that was actually the first times that, like, you know, reciprocity came about, because it's like we always divide, even words is very tricky, you know, because it's like it divide like situation or state as like give and to take. It becoming two different actions that not correlated to one another. But the terms reciprocity help to bring these two together. So reciprocity is a practice. It's a resistance of like how the words give and take, not in relation to one another.
Yeah, no, thank you very much. Yeah. It's always nice to like start thinking deeper into like what does that really mean, and you kind of learn that through the practice. So I think that part is actually very inspirational as well. Let's see if there's another question in the audience or thoughts. Somebody? Oh.
Hello, thank you very much for that wonderful presentation. So I come from the Philippines, from the southern part of the Philippines, and I was so fascinated seeing how there's some similar aspects. For example, the language used, such as the line. In my language, it also means others or variety. So like we say lain tao, other people. Or like lain tao, variety of people. And just wanted to ask, because you work with these placemakers, diverse peoples, peoples involving socio-cultural differences, I just wanted to know, for example, we also have the Bajau.
Bajau.
There's a slide there where
Yeah.
have the inclusion of the
Orang Bajau. Yeah.
and it's just like a lot of stuff just flooding in my mind of how do you start the conversation with all these different groups of people. So you have the indigenous peoples and the people who have lived in the metropolis for a different time, which I imagine are quite different in all these complex sets of beliefs and whatnot. So I just wanted to ask, like, how do you usually start that conversation and go through this journey of togetherness? I know that probably in the end, it doesn't probably come to like 100% agreement, like you said, and
I think it's interesting that you mentioned like Orang Bajau because in our context, if you know of a lot of Orang Bajau, they wouldn't be able to travel interstate because they are considered stateless. Yeah, so in Malaysia context, because I think it's also crushed with the notion of borders. And most of the ethnicity, like in fact, when you look into Borneo region, they are landless. In fact, they don't want to, in the ancestral wisdom, it doesn't feel right to have land. Yeah, so because it's like, who are we to say we own the land? Yeah, and especially we are such temporal being in the planet Earth. Who are we to think that we can own something that share like 5 billion years of history? So with Orang Bajau, like they are sea people. So their lung is actually 1.5, like bigger than the normal lung, because they are the sea people, and they dive, and with the Bajau communities that we work with, like actually we work in very small occasion, like for example on the craft of the woven craft. And what we found out was like when you look at Orang Bajau, like craft is so wonderful, like so colorful, because those are the color they can see from the sea. Yeah, with the purple, with the pink. Yeah, I don't know whether I have the picture of it here. Yeah. So on reciprocity project, we intended to, I think you probably saw it from the video. Yeah. So we intended to engage them because it's also very important, like at this stage in our country, in the region, to acknowledge like also the differences of the notion of land, the notion of ownership. And like with the Bajau community, like we were working together like on some of the woven product that like can be bring to this workshop, yeah, as a shared asset, as a shared memories, because most of them wouldn't be able to travel to our state to tell the story. So then by telling the story through that like purse, yeah, they will help like the participant to understand like what is going on like in the region. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you for the question. Yeah, and I think that also actually brings the idea of like your study on the craft not only like to the region but actually cross regions, and I think that's also something that we start looking at here locally in Hong Kong. Not exactly the same type of craft, but how we start to see all these stories. I mean, every material or every making that has some stories behind it. Let's see, we're actually almost time's up, but is there any last question? Somebody wants to have a thought on last questions? Yes.
Thank you for your talk, Wendy. I guess my question is interested in the idea of the collective. I mean, my whole PhD is about it. But then I think what I'm interested to hear more about is that you have identified all these like whole systems of exchange, of reciprocity, of material, like kind of craft, all the way from the harvest to even creating the object itself. I wonder, for your practice, how do you choose to intervene at what point, and with which kind of partners that you want to bring into the project to kind of bring the story out for others to learn more about? I guess I'm interested to hear about, because it seems like for every project is a different kind of collective exchange. Like you choose different people, different partners to work with. So I want to hear more about like that choice, and also how do these different partners offer different kind of wisdom or knowledge to build back into your own practice. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for the question. Yeah. Yeah, it's a very meaningful one, especially like as I mentioned lastly in the sharing. It's like we have a lot of recurring partners, but at the same time we also like it's very important to address that different people has different not necessarily have like all the similar shared interests. Yeah, and I think it's like earlier when I mentioned about like some of the challenge that we identify like in the community or in the world right now is like that the idea of centralization, and also massification, like as a like I think is in a way, I don't know whether it's right to call it, like it's safe to say it's already an obsolete idea, like to concentrate everyone's in the room to work on the same thing, or even to centralize like all these topic of interest into one space to share that like workload or efforts. But I think like this is also something that like I'm not saying that is wrong, but I think it's like we're trying to explore different way of doing things. It's like, but at the same time, even though we have recurring partners, we also find that important to work with different people, because otherwise we also end up to be an echo chamber. Yeah. So which also means that like when you want to look into challenge like some notion that have global relevancy, you need to work with the global partners. And when it comes to like the notion of arts and the notion of craft or architecture, like you need to work like very closely with the regional partners, and especially through that ecosystem, the people, like different stakeholders from that ecosystem. And I find that like way of working help us to gain a lot more insight in how to drive that conversation, because a lot of time like there's a lot of exclusion due to how we perceive profession, yeah, and also like the borders of like disciplines. So yesterday I actually had a very good conversation with a long-time partners of mine, Lin. So Lin from GSA. So we were talking about like interdisciplinary practice, but there's also a dilemma for a lot of interdisciplinary practice, because there is a lot of like power of politics and politics of power in any disciplines. So if you're not moving beyond that to when you're working with other disciplines and admit like some of the things that's not working, like for example in our disciplines, the idea of zoning, the demarcation of powers, the demarcation of productivity. In the today's world, is it still relevant? And then the idea of zoning also bring in exclusion as well. So can we have more like more aspiration to talk about like dezoning rather than zoning? So these are the things that like we were talking and debating. And we also find that it's important, like at this point of time, like with AI is evolving like so fast, multi-agent network is probably like going to turn humanity, like productivity or creativity into a black box. So how could we be relevant? And I think we need to be fast enough to dissolve the ego within any disciplines, to admit like things when things are not working. So to work collectively together, I think that will be, that for me is actually the direction we want to take on. Yeah, because if we are not fast enough to dissolve that ego, we're going to be obsolete in a very short time.
Thank you. Yeah, no, thank you, Wendy. I think that's actually a wonderful end note of bringing into we have to do it collectively, right? Yeah. And well, thank you very much, and thank you to all of you coming today. And then the next lecture series, Advertising Time, is October 2nd. Mark your calendar. Thank you. Applause.